Hi, I'm standing here in the unfinished area of our church building. We went through a building project several years ago, and this area remains unfinished. And some people might be ashamed of that. Oh, it's not finished, it's not complete. You know the words of Jesus, before you step out and build, make sure you can finish the whole project. But the reality is this unfinished area doesn't cause us shame because it's all part of a plan. And we have been building piece by piece and finishing piece by piece. And eventually we'll get to this place. And so when you look at the big picture, there's no shame in the fact that this is unfinished. That's kind of what Paul was saying to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 1 when he said, "So don't be ashamed of the testimony about the Lord or me as prisoner." Interesting, Paul's writing to Timothy in the first century. Timothy's a pastor and a leader, and he's struggling with shame of the gospel, allowing the shame to tame him, to keep him quiet. And Paul says, don't let that. In fact, he says, rather join with me in suffering for the gospel. Join with me in suffering for the gospel. Embrace the suffering that comes with the gospel. But Paul, why would you embrace the suffering of the gospel, that which causes me shame? A little bit further on, Paul says, this is why I'm suffering as I am. He said, I'm a herald, I'm a teacher, I'm an apostle. God's called me to go out and tell people about Jesus and then start churches and then build them up in their faith. And Paul is actually in prison when he's writing this. He's in prison because he's been faithful. He's embraced the suffering that comes with the gospel. And he says, that's why I'm suffering, because I've been faithful to this gospel. I haven't let shame stop me. Yet this is no cause for shame. Being in prison and suffering is not causing me shame. Well, why is that, Paul? Because I know who I'm believed. I know that I put my faith in Jesus. In the great poker game of life, I've taken all my chips and I've put them in, and they're all on Jesus. And I'm counting on Him and His plan that He will fulfill it and He will complete it. And I'm convinced that Jesus is able to guard what I have entrusted to Him against that day. I'm convinced that I've taken my life and put it all on Jesus, and I've served Him and I've suffered for the gospel. But I believe that the plan of God is greater than what I can see or anybody sees right now. That this plan of God that started before the beginning of time is what He just said, and will go until the end of time, in which God will get rid of death and He'll bring life and immortality to light through the gospel of Jesus Christ. I believe that God is going to do that. And so in the next chapter, Paul says, those that suffer with Him will reign with Him. Paul really believes that. And that's why he embraces the suffering that comes with the gospel, because it's worth it. What can a man give in exchange for a soul? What possibly could we gain on earth that's greater than walking and obeying Jesus and embracing the call and the mission that He's given us to share Jesus and lead people to faith? And so Paul says, I'm trusting Jesus, and I'm convinced He's going to pull off what He said, and it'll be worth having followed and suffered, even suffering for Him. What about you? What about your walk as a Christian? Are you letting the shame of the gospel hold you quiet? Or are you freed by faith to speak out in Jesus' name?